Hello there, everybody, and I'm here to talk about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Season 4. So it's been a bit. I've been putting it off, but I decided to review it today. So we're going to really get into the best parts, since this is a really good season, as we get into, Darth Maul, the Umbara arc, and a bunch of other stuff, so let's get into it. So, Season 4 starts with, the Mon Calamari arc. It's where the Mon Calamari is at war with these the one of their enemies because they have lost one of their leaders who has been murdered. It now leads to the Republic getting involved, where Anakin, Ahsoka, and Padme are sent. Also, Kit Fisto comes along, where they are going to fight to defend the people on Mon Calamari. So, I originally, when I saw these episodes, I wasn't too into these episodes. I don't know why. I said that in the Little Blue channel, but when I rewatched it, it was actually pretty good. I like how different it is. They're exploring a different planet, since we never really see, the underwater kind of world in Star Wars. And we see, interesting characters like Lee Char, who is trying to save his people from the Separatist plot by Count Dooku, of course. And we see, this shark guy. I forget his name. But I don't know, I got some Jaws vibes from him. The first episode is mainly just, a battle where Anakin is, fighting with his lightsaber underwater. He ends up losing, his helmet during a fight. But he ends up getting it back with the help of Ahsoka. And they manage to rally the people together, but they need more support. That's what leads to the next episode, where they've gathered the Gungans decided to help out, since they're good at breathing underwater. And I think we see Jar Jar help lead the team. And I gotta say, it's quite interesting where this all leads to, where but at the end of this episode, Anakin, I think, gets captured after the battle, and Padme as well. And the next, literally the next episode, leads to them wondering where Lee Char is, and he's gathering the remaining people they need. And he's using these electric eels to torture Anakin, and he almost kills Padme by scratching her helmet, and ends up breaking, but with the help of Jar Jar, Ahsoka, and Lee Char, they manage to rescue them. And Jar Jar uses his spit to help Padme survive. And basically the remaining battle is with the shark dude, who ends up getting killed by getting stabbed. I'm pretty sure by Lee Char. And it's hard to remember, but I think he's able to save his people. And that's the Mon Calamari arc. But what I really like about it is I feel like this episode was inspired by the original Mon Calamari little short what they did with the Clone Wars micro series. And we saw Kit Fisto defend the planet, and it shows when we see his design in this, where he's not wearing a shirt and he's able to adapt to the environment because of his species. We also see Admiral Akbar, which is pretty cool. I honestly forget when I saw Admiral Akbar in this show, but it was quite nice to see him. So this arc was not my favorite of the episodes, but it was definitely a good one for sure. Okay, so the next episode is we get an episode on Naboo. It's where Padme is trying to negotiate a deal to free the people of Naboo from General Grievous, but they need someone to oppose as the leader, since Boss Nass has left them his position of leader. So the person they get is Jar Jar yet again, and he has to confront General Grievous, but it does not go well once Grievous is suspected of what's really going on. And that's where it leads to a fight with General Grievous and the Gungans, and the leader of the Gungans from the Phantom Menace. I forget his name, but he actually manages to take out Grievous. His entire army was coming, but they managed to shut them down like he did in the Phantom Menace. And he manages to like he ends up dying in combat with General Grievous, but he uses his spike, his weapon, to stab Grievous through the chest, and they manage to detach his arms and legs, but now they have to make a deal. But what happens during this episode is Anakin is tricked, lured into a trap by one of the traitors on the planet that started this whole mess. He ends up getting lured into a trap by Count Dooku. He gets into a fight with a bunch of Magna Guards, and he ends up getting captured. And so now they have this close chance at winning the war. Even Padme is hesitant to have them get back Anakin, but they give no other choice than to release Anakin, who is unconscious, but Grievous walks by, captured, and returned to the Separatists. And honestly, this moment, this is the only moment in the show where Anakin and Grievous almost met, because they don't meet till Revenge of the Sith. And this episode almost has them meet, which is this is definitely a wild episode for sure. But the next episode is an episode centered on R2-D2 and C-3PO. So that they are trapped. They go to like this mystical world as like to be a translator for the species they're trying to talk to, but instead R2 and 3PO with Commander Wolf, they end up going. Both R2 and 3PO end up going into like this, falling into like this cave, and they meet like these new creatures that kind of look like glowing trees, and they have to follow like this maze in like this weird temple. They meet some like angel who might be a mystical to the Force. She has the duo like figure out like some like riddle, and they end up like leaving through like a water like fall or something, like I forget what it's called. But this episode was fine. It was just like typical R2-D2 and C-3PO episode. But the next episode was quite insane, where C-3PO and R2 get into unexpected events after they are rescued by Commander Wolf. They end up the next episode literally leads to them like getting captured by the Separatists when they invade their ship, but they manage to escape in a Y-wing, but they get shot down, and that's where they meet another new beings. They meet these little people who are arguing over their tribe, but C-3PO teaches them about a democracy, and it does not go well because he accidentally knocks R2-D2 down, and he ends up squashing one of them, and he kills their king. And they actually chant about it. Like, it's quite dark if you really think about it, even though it's meant to be like a silly moment. But the duo are encountered by another being, which then becomes like a sort of like parody of like the Wizard of Oz. But the funniest scene in this episode is where R2 goes in, finds out who this guy is who's trying to rule over their people, and he ends up finding the guy who's just who's not tough at all, and they show like he's like talking in like this crazy voice and shooting out lightning, but R2 ends up showing up in the hologram, and they expose them, and they free the little people they met, but because R2 and 3PO are low on battery, they both end up shutting down, but they are rescued by pirates. I don't know why, but in this moment of the episode, it kind of reminds me of how R2 and 3PO's relationship we see in, like, New Hope, if you know what I'm saying. That's what kind of vibes I got from it. But once they are rescued by the pirates, they are forced to fall into, like, this incinerator, but they are attacked by the Separatists, and R2 and 3PO manage to escape through an open, damaged ship, and they manage to get on board. That's where they, like, find a way to get back on, like, to the Republic, and we did get this cool scene where like Adi Galliga is fighting General Grievous, and like they meet back up with Wolf, who's annoyed to see them. But yeah, this is that episode. This is just like a nice arc of R2 and C-3PO. It's just meant to kind of like, it was like a slower episode, which leads to the bigger episodes, which I'm really excited to talk about, is the Umbara arc. The Umbara arc is easily some of the best Clone Wars we've seen. It's where we see the clones truly form as brothers, where they are forced to reclaim the planet on Umbara with Anakin Skywalker, but because Palpatine doesn't want Anakin on dangerous missions like this, because the planet is super infested where people can easily die on this planet. Anakin is sent back to Coruscant by the Chancellor because of his his plans for the rule of the galaxy. But they get a new recruit, that being Pong Carell. So Pong Carell is like he's easily one of the more interesting characters in the Clone Wars. He literally wields 2 double-bladed lightsabers, and he's a very cold leader, as we show in this episode, where he refers to the clones as just their numbers. He doesn't view them as people. He makes them go on dangerous missions, and that takes a toll in the episode, where he literally threatens Fives with his lightsaber. But they managed to try their best to follow orders. Mainly the second episode is where like they're in battle, and they're risking all they can during their mission. But they decide to not follow orders in the third episode, where I think Jesse, Fives, and Havoc end up wanting to use a strike on the airship on Umbara, but at least one of the clones sacrificing himself. And we even get this similar scene like in New Hope, where Han Solo is talking to the stormtrooper, the admiral, saying like, "Oh, nothing's going wrong at all. How are you?" And he says that wasn't a good conversation. It's like that, and then the admiral says, "Oh, what's your operating number?" And then that's what Pong Carell was saying to the clone. It reminds me of that. The story rhymes. It's like poetry. But the clones end up, like I said, when Havoc ends up, I think he sacrifices himself, and he says a good line like, "Live to fight another day, boys. Live to fight another day." But because the 2 clones disobeyed orders, Pong Carell has decided to execute Fives and Jesse. But because the clones have a good heart, they decide to not do it, because they realize it's wrong. And the Rex and his clones are sent to go take out another, what they claim are Umbaras, disguising themselves as the clones. And they thought they finished the battle, but it turns out Pong Carell has actually betrayed them and had them tricking into thinking they're Umbaras, even though Rex tells them they're all clones. He actually has this freak out, he's trying to get them to stop shooting. And what's actually sad is they end up accidentally killing Waxer and Boyle, and that's what happens. And it's actually sad, because now Captain Rex has now decided he must take a stance against Carell, since they feel he's gone too far. And of course, it's revealed that Pong Carell is actually using the clones against each other, and that's where Rex says you're under arrest, and then Carell says it's treason, and he ends up escaping. He uses the Force, and he is able to take out clone after clone. He even refers to them as just creatures from a laboratory. He ends up getting attacked by a bunch of clones, and it turns out one of the clones actually betrayed and joined Carell, which got them in trouble in the first place. But the clones decide they must go into the forest area of Umbara and try to take out Carell. And he even taunts them by saying, "You should have listened to the yard trooper," and he admits that he was using them. And he's able to take out clones, he's even using his hands to take them out, even with his lightsabers. But with the help of Clone Trooper Tub, who uses one of the creatures on Umbara to trick Carell, and he grabs Carell and he slims him down, and then the clones are able to stun him, and then the clones interrogate him as he's under arrest. But what happens is Carell admits he is a spy for Dooku, and he plans on joining his side, but we know that ain't gonna happen, as he's gonna get executed by Rex, but he's hesitant. Even Carell calls him out on it. But what happens is Corell gets shot by one of the clones who betrayed them, and he's like, he betrayed us. And I think that's the Umbara arc, where now Umbara's freed. And this episode was really good because it shows the bondness between the clones. And the clones didn't have much character in the Legends timeline, but with the help of this show, they really showed that the clones cared for each other. And this episode is definitely easily one of the best clone episodes. Clones versus Corell was easily the best. So the next episodes are what I call is like this, I guess, where the Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan and Rex are sent to free a group of slaves of Ahsoka's species, but it takes a turn on Anakin because, he was a slave when he was a boy, and he actually ends up, like, cracking one of the comlinks Obi-Wan was sent on a mission for, and, like, and Ahsoka tries to ask Obi-Wan what's wrong with him, but Obi-Wan talks about his past a little, and Ahsoka just is like, I don't know about Anakin's past. And like, they're up against the Zyberians, I think they're called. They're like these slave owners, and I think this episode was based off a comic that is similar to a story like this. But I think like in the next episode, where like the Jedi end up like wearing like these disguises to sneak onto the planet. But I think they get caught by the slave masters, and they meet like the queen, who is being manipulated the whole time by like Count Dooku, who is wanting to exterminate because he's a separatist leader. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but like, I think what happens is like, we get this like where like Obi-Wan is caught, Rex is caught, and they're forced to work as slaves, and Ahsoka's trapped in a cage, and Anakin tries to confront the queen as he's meant to be the hero, and he's completely cool with killing the various Siberians because he doesn't like how they're slaves. And honestly, you kind of like I can understand Anakin feeling frustrated, but this like it shows like Anakin's dark side since it's preying on his insecurities in this episode. But once Anakin figured out it's Dooku the whole time, he gets into a sort of a lightsaber duel with him, with like the light whip. But I think Dooku ends up killing the Siberian leader after she realizes that she's been tricked the whole time. And Anakin actually shows sympathy somewhat to her, even though she kind of liked Anakin a little. But Obi-Wan, I feel like it's also a rough time for Obi-Wan in this episode, since he's treated like a slave and even tries to stand up. But once he is set free, after we get this cool finale, where Ahsoka is freed with the help of R2, they manage to, I think, free all the Targaryens, Ahsoka's species, and they manage to, with the help of the Republic and Plo Koon, they manage to rescue them. They almost fall off the platform because the leader who's owning all the slaves, he ends up trying to do bad things, and you just feel like you just want this guy to die. Like, he deserves it because of the way he's treating the people here. But what Obi-Wan does, once he's freed, and again to the fight with the Zyberians, because they don't have their weapons just yet. But once Obi-Wan gets his lightsaber back, he is able to take out this guy, and he's like, oh, you can't kill me, you're a Jedi. But Rex ends up killing him by stabbing him. And it's honestly satisfying. Like, he deserved to die because of how he treated the slaves. But I think they managed to rescue the people there, and everything comes together, and that's this arc. So yeah, these episodes are really good, even though it explores more darker themes in Star Wars, like slaves. But it all wrapped up nicely, I think. But the next episode is an episode centered on the return of Lux, who has decided that he's in over his head because he has joined another tribe, since he could never understand the Republic and like the Separatists. But he ends up revealing after he stuns Ahsoka after she's suspicious of what's going on, and they end up like going to what they see is like Pre Vizsla, who he's revealed to work with Dead Watch. And Ahsoka tells him that he's in over his head, and he's starting to realize it as he is captured by Pre Vizsla, after he realizes how awful he is as he's doing various terrorism around villages. And they end up, I'm gonna really shift a bit, but like R2D2 ends up getting sent into this room full of broken droids that they tortured, and all of the droids beg R2 to fix them, and R2 actually does it. Like, that's how of a beast R2 is. Like, he's such a nice droid. That's what makes him unique. But Ahsoka gets into like a small lightsaber duel with Pre Vizsla for a bit. And I do like Pre Vizsla's new design. His helmet looks really cool. And this is the only episode we see him in, but the three of them manage to get away from Dead Watch, and they do get into a fight with Bo-Katan, which is cool. I think this is like the first episode we see Bo-Katan, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It might have only been all the way back in season 2. But we see more of like Death Watch again in like season 5 when Darth Maul shows up. But yeah, this was a good episode. But the next episode, things take a turn once we get to the best undercover arc, where Obi-Wan is now undercover as he faked his death so he can cover and pretend to be a bounty hunter who's revealed that there's some secret plot to take out Chancellor Palpatine. And while Obi-Wan was chasing a bounty hunter named Reiko Hardeen, he ends up getting shot. And he faked his death, of course, but with the help of Mace Windu, he manages to, like, shave his head, and we see Obi-Wan without a beard. We did see his funeral. Like, we know it takes a turn for Anakin. Even see Satine there. It's actually sad, even though we know Obi-Wan's fine. When I saw this as a kid, I actually thought Obi-Wan died, but, like, I knew he didn't. I realized he didn't because he doesn't die till New Hope. But Obi-Wan ends up going undercover as Reiko Hardeen. He goes to the prison, and he ends up... I do like the scene where, like, Obi-Wan, they use, like, this technology to disguise himself as the character. And he makes Reiko Hardeen confess. And I heard this argument that, like, why didn't they use this technology as a disguise in, like, other Star Wars media? But, like, I don't know, because this is, like, they thought this was a cool technology used for this episode. It's not like it's a big thing, but anyway, Obi-Wan ends up going undercover, figure out what's going on. He bumps into other various characters that have been arrested, like Boba Fett, and I think we see Bosk, but we see the return of Cad Bane. And they manage to, like, escape. They have this escape plan where they cause a riot at the prison, and they end up going into, like, a cremator, like, shipping thing, and they end up, like, taking out the clones, and Cad Bane notices Reiko's hesitation because he didn't want to kill one of the clones, and you feel bad. Like, you feel bad when Obi-Wan, like, has to witness his comrades get killed, like the clones. But they manage to escape the planet. And mainly the next episode is where they're in, like, this goose chase with Anakin and the cat. And, like, first Cad Bane doesn't trust Reiko because of how hesitant he is. But he manages to team up back up with him at the last second. They even get, like, their equipment. Cad Bane gets, like, his new hat. And we also see a cameo of, like, the Indiana Jones hat, which was nice. But they get into a fight with Anakin, and Anakin's really furious because he thinks Obi-Wan did it. And some people make the argument that, like, why didn't Obi-Wan tell Anakin? But, like, they know they can't trust Anakin. But then again, like, Obi-Wan had to keep his cover, so there was only so little people can knew. Only Yoda and Mace Windu only knew. So it made sense. But Obi-Wan ends up getting away, and he gives a hint to Anakin, like, that this is not Reiko Hardeen, this is Obi-Wan. But the next episode, we get this cool episode where, like, Obi-Wan and teams up with various other bounty hunters. They're sent to Count Dooku, who are now tested It kind of reminds me of like the one episode of Rebels where Ezra goes undercover at the Imperial Academy, but in this, the bounty hunters have to go through the trials to see who would be the one to take out Chancellor Palpatine. And because of Obi-Wan's Jedi skills, he's able to master all of these the traps in this like little box, as they're called, and Count Dooku is suspecting that the Rhaegar Hardin seems super powerful, like tough, like he seems different, like he doesn't know it's Obi-Wan, but he has like Obi-Wan fight one of the dudes. I think it's this guy, but yeah, that's what happens. And Obi-Wan and a few other these bounty hunters and Cad Bane are shown. But I do like the scene where Cad Bane gets a new hat. He ends up killing one of the bounty hunters who came. Like, it's quite dark. And, like, Count Dooku did introduce all the bounty hunters and saying Cad Bane needs no introduction, which is nice. A nice line. But anyway, the next episode is where it all goes down. Where Obi-Wan is sent to protect the Chancellor, who is now about to get captured by Dooku after they tried to assassinate him, but because of Obi-Wan, he is able to stop all the bounty hunters, including Cad Bane, and he manages to get them captured. And I think Anakin and Mace Windu end up saving the Chancellor, but he is captured again later. But this takes a turn once Anakin finds out that this is Obi-Wan the whole time, and he's tired of the council lying to him, and like I do like that line where Anakin's like, "How do you even know the intel?" or something. But Obi-Wan and Anakin end up having to go save the Chancellor. I like how they do team up. They get into we get this similar scene where Anakin is trapped yet again by Dooku, who, like in Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader gets up and says, "Would you be honored if you would join us?" It's a similar scene where Anakin and Chancellor are talking, but then like he ends up almost getting the Chancellor, but the Anakin and Obi-Wan managed to save him at the last second, and Dooku gets away, and that's the bounty hunter arc for Obi-Wan. So yeah, this is a really interesting arc. It like explores like the bounty hunters really well. Cad Bane, Obi-Wan trying to keep a low profile as a bounty hunter. And yeah, it does take a turn with Anakin, and some people had some nitpicks about this episode, but I was really invested in this arc for sure. But the next episode is called Massacre. It's where the Night Sisters are out for revenge towards General Grievous and Dooku, and they end up using their Night Sister magic. And it kind of reminds me of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they use a voodoo doll of Dooku. And they end up poisoning him while he's at his headquarters. And so it is because he has decided that the Night Sisters are too much of a threat. So he sends General Grievous to take them out. And Grievous is just cruel in this episode. Like, he ends up killing a bunch of Night Sisters as they attack. And Ventress does her best to defend herself against Grievous. But they end up using, like, these zombies to resurrect the dead Night Sisters, and they end up taking out some of the droids, but overall, Grievous is able to take the upper hand. He almost gets Mother Talzin, but she escapes, and Grievous ends up killing the old Duck, I think her name is, from the Night Sister clan, and the way she dies, it's brutal, like, ooh. And yeah, Dooku ain't playing around, even though he was almost killed because of the voodoo doll. They end up stopping the ritual. And Asajj Ventress manages to survive, and she tries to talk to her mother, but she ends up fading away. And Ventress now feels alone. And I kind of jumped a bit with this episode, but this was a really good episode. It explores the Night Sister as well, and it's a lot of battling, but it's still a really good episode. But the next episode is like where we finally get to the Darth Maul arc, where we continue what Savage Opress has been up to. He's been very rowdy at Coruscant, as he is searching for answers. But he ends up sneaking onto a transport where he goes to Mother Talzin, and he finds out that the sisters have been massacred, and he said he's been looking for his brother the whole time. It's just not really working out. Wait, no, I'm so sorry. I made a huge mistake. That's in the next episode. Oh. But Savage Press manages to use the tracker of sand. He finds like this sand that he's able to track to wherever the planet is, and he manages to find this junk land looking planet. And Mother Talzin does see that Savage Press is very close. But he meets like this snake dude once he gets to the junk planet. And he ends up getting betrayed by the snake, and that snake gets karma as he is killed, and he ends up finding Darth Maul, who is now like trapped as like a spider who has gone insane ever since the Phantom Menace, and his mind is just not there. But Savage manages to rescue his brother, and he takes him back to Dathomir. That's where he does learn about the fate of the Night Sisters. And but what Mother Talzin does, she uses her magic to give Maul new legs. And it's basically the concept from the old Star Wars Old Wounds comic that's not canon. It's where Darth Maul has like these cyborg-looking legs and giant horns. And we learned how Darth Maul survived. It was because of his hatred that kept him alive. And he was able to fall into a transport, which what led him to the junk planet. And Savage is ready to go on a campaign with Darth Maul. And seeing Darth Maul back was insane. This was the episode I was so excited when I watched it as a kid. He even gives him his lightsaber. He does like a force scream, and now he's gonna lure Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding, and that's what he does. He even massacres a village. Like, that's how evil Darth Maul is. He's craving power, and that's where it lures Obi-Wan there. But once he gets there, Darth Maul gives this speech of how he's been waiting. He even taunts Obi-Wan about Qui-Gon. But he even manages to kidnap Obi-Wan with Savage Press. But Ventress, who has now decided to turn her life around and become a bounty hunter, where she goes to I think to rescue she decides to take out Savage Press, and I think she's able to get into a fight with Darth Maul and Savage. And they get into this big lightsaber duel. It's quite awesome. And I do like the line where Obi-Wan says, "Red ain't my color." And I forgot to mention this one episode. I'll get to that in a bit. But Ventress and Darth Maul and Savage all get into a fight. And they managed to get out at the last second. And Savage and Darth Maul managed to almost cut the door open where they are. But, yeah. So, I think that's the last episode. But there was this, I don't know how I missed this, since I was looking through all the episodes of Season 4. But there's this one episode with Ventress where we see her become a bounty hunter now, since she doesn't have a life after what happened, where she teams up with various bounty hunters, that being Boba Fett, Bosk, and other Embo, I'm pretty sure, and they end up going on this train heist to get payment, where they save these they fight these ninja looking dudes, and I think Ventress ends up kidnapping, she decides to have a change of heart when they realize they're kidnapping a princess for something, and she decides to she does get the princess back to her people, but she ends up capturing Boba, and she ends up fooling them all, and she gets the money for herself. That's where we see Ventress like become a bounty hunter. It's more shown once we get to the Darth Maul episodes. But the Darth Maul episodes were definitely some of the best Clone Wars. Like, we see how evil Maul is in Savage, and it's set up for greater storytelling. And I think that's the end of Season 4 of the Clone Wars. A really great season. A lot of good character moments. A lot of stakes, for sure. It feels like it's in the middle of all the seasons, for sure. But it was definitely a worthwhile season, for sure. I'm sorry I missed an episode, but I think I got all of it down. So I give Season 4 like an 8 out of 10. How about a 9? It was definitely a stepper up from Season 3, for sure, as the show's getting more deep, for sure. And some people have complaints about the Clone Wars, but like, whatever. That's their opinions. But anyway, I'm going to review Season 5 maybe in maybe in a month. But anyway, thanks for watching. May the Force be with you always.